one of my past videos, I have created this beautiful Gond Art Peacock. So let's add some colors to it today. I'm using acrylic colors by Fevicryl. First, we are going to use a yellow color. So I'm going to do the main body of the peacock with yellow shade. So let's start. We have to be very careful and try and color inside the main lines. I'm using a flat brush. So the main feature of any Gond painting is its pattern that we are going to create above it. So you can see I've created a small few lines. This pattern I'm going to create on this entire peacock body. So once my paint is nicely dried up, I'm going to come back and paint it. So let's do the first coat. We have to do it very slowly and carefully to avoid any mistakes. Just focus on, especially on the corners. Try and color as possible as much inside the lines only. Carefully take your time. And give a good thick coat of paint. If you've already created the pattern, then try and do a very light coat so your lines are visible. If not, then do a good thick coat of paint. Thank you everyone who have taken out time from their busy schedule to watch my video. Don't forget to put a like or comment if you like this video. You can subscribe my YouTube channel or watch my Instagram account for more such videos. So this is how we're going to do the main body. Now let's move on to the next shade, which is going to be a shade of red. So for the feathers, I'm going to use the main second part, which is going to be the center. I'm going to use a shade of red. I was confused between using a shade of red and orange, so I thought I'll go with the red. Whenever we are making a Gond art painting, what we can do is, when we use a lighter shade of color, then we are going to make the lines with a darker shade, and when we are doing a darker shade, when we are using, then we are going to use make the pattern using a lighter tone to give it a contrast, and also to make the pattern look neat and clean. You can use any sort of brushes. I'm using a round brush just to give you a glimpse of it. You can use a flat brush also. Very carefully on the corners. Always outline and then fill in the color. I want a good thick shade of red, so when I'm going to make the patterns above it, it will look very neat. So if it is very transparent, then that pattern will also not come up nicely. Just go with the flow. Outline first and then add in the colors. First outline and then fill in the color. Do let me know in the comment section, shall I add orange above this or yellow? Shall I do a contrast of yellow and red only? Again, I'm using a acrylic colors by Fevicryl. You can use watercolor also, but when you do the upper part, be very carefully, since watercolors, whenever you add the next layer and if you add any water, they can mix and smudge. So it's better to use acrylic colors. So whatever color I'm going to do on top of this, both the colors are not going to get smudged. With the watercolor, there is always a chance of getting that. Always outline. Give it a smooth finish before you move on to the next color. So now you can see 2 colors have been done. Now let's move on to the third color. With using the same red color, I'm going to color the beak also. So let's do that. It's always nice to, finish one shade before moving on to the next one. So you can see I'm just using the tip of my brush and very, very carefully even in the crown of my peacock, just these 4 circles. So you can see just I'm using again the red color and coloring my crown. Here we are. Now let's move on to the next shade, which is going to be a shade of brown. This is I'm going to use at the back of my tree. So let's add. But before I use that, I'm going to add a little bit of white to it to tone it down. I don't want a very harsh color. I want a little subtle color for my brown shade. Okay, so let's add a little bit of white to my brown color. We have to be very careful while using all these shades. We don't want a very light color. We don't want a very dark color. So we have to be very careful while using this. Always mix and match. Try and give it a new shade. Always make enough paint so you can do the entire tree together. Because later on, if you try and make the same color, it becomes very difficult. Also, I'm using a lighter shade because I want to do a darker shade on that. The pattern I'm going to create on top of it is going to be of a little darker shade. So now let's color onto the tree. Be very careful. Again, just by using the tip of my brush, I'm going to try and spread as much color as I can. See, just by using the tip of my color, I'm not using too much of color, I'm just trying to spread it. Always make enough color. If you're adding any shade, or if you're adding a little white or a yellow, be very careful. Just don't add too much of water. Again, you don't want it to be more transparent. Just enough to make your brush glide. So I'm just making it glide on my tree trunk. Be very, very careful. Especially on the corners. Outline and then fill in the color. Can anyone tell me what's the color of a peacock, legs? It's a very darker shade of brown actually. It's a combination of black and brown. So I'm going to use a darker shade, not the same one. So you can see we're going to just tilt our sheet a bit. Be very careful, don't forget any of the branches. Spend a minute, observe, then move. Now let's color this part of the branch. Outline. Again, not too much of water. Always do one part and then move on to the next one. You can even use a color of yellow ochre. That's a little lighter shade of brown. You can try that. Do let me know how you paint your whenever you're painting, do you like listening to music, or do you want to concentrate only on the painting? Any favorite songs that you listen? Your favorite color combination? What kind of sheet do you prefer? This is a GSM 200 sheet that I'm using currently. You can make it on a canvas, or you can use GSM 300 also, but this one is GSM 200 that I'm using currently. carefully. In this video, we're gonna just paint this. In my next video, I'm gonna come in. We're gonna together add some patterns to this one and give it a final look. Be careful, especially on the corners. So we're almost done with half of our base. Now let's move on to the other side. Brown color have this tendency of leaving some patches, so it's always nice if you have some extra color, go back, take another minute and add a little more details again. So as my brown color is finished now, the lighter shade that I've created, I'm just going to make again a shade quickly. So this is the reason why I always recommend to make more color. It's okay if you waste a bit of it, but getting the right shade again is always a little difficult task. Add a little bit water just to make your brush go smooth. Finally, got another shade. Now let's add on. I just need to add a little more brown. Now I think we've got the shade. Now let's again just use the tip of your brush. See, my brush have a lot of paint, but I'm still using the tip of my brush. We don't need to add in color again and again. But yes, I'm getting a good thick layer of my color. Be a little careful when there is a little complex design outline. For this kind of pattern, I always recommend to go for a circular brush. Don't go for a flat one. Just outline and then fill in. Especially on the corners, on the lines. Be careful. It's okay if you have to do some strokes again and again, but it's always don't try and save your time. So now you can see how this brown color is shining out. So you can see every single branch, every single stroke that I'm creating. Be careful. To get this brown shade, I have added a little bit of white to my brown color. Not too much, just a little bit. I'm going to use it straight from the bottle and then you can find out the difference. We're going to use a darker shade on the, the legs of the peacock. Do let me know which is your favorite color. I get to hear from a lot of people that brown is their shade. So are you also one of them who thinks brown is absolutely their favorite color? I'm a fan of red actually, and a shade of white. We have to be careful, especially when it's like smaller lines like these. We don't want our paint, to get out of the lines. We're almost done. So let's just keep it slow. And here we are, done with our tree. Just spend another minute or so if you need, because brown color do have a tendency of giving a patchy look. If you have some extra paint, just take another minute, redo a few strokes. I'm just checking out if I've missed anything. Hopefully not. This looks good. Now let's move on to the next shade, which is going to be again a shade of brown, but this is going to be a shade of dark brown color, which I'm going to use to paint the legs. Now let's do it. So in this one I have added a little water. So now you can see the difference with water, without water. With water is going to be a little more patchy, but that's okay. We are just going to wait for it to dry and then do another coat. We don't want our paint to be patchy. but can't help, brown have this tendency of leaving some patches. A lot of times people in the olden times used to paint using natural ingredients. So if you are out of paints and if you want to try an experiment, you can use, you have that, you have turmeric at home, you have like red sindoor or a red powder that you use in puja, then you can use that color also. So sometimes it's nice to experiment. So here we are. It's always nice to keep a blank sheet at the bottom of your page. Sometimes the paint seeps down, so you don't want your next sheet to be ruined, so be careful. Here we are, done. Now let's move on to the next shade, which is going to be two shades of green that I'm going to use. One is going to be a shade of light green and one is going to be a shade of dark green. So let's start. I'm going to just give you a smaller glimpse, so to give you an idea how it's going to look. You can see this complete colored picture on my Instagram account. I'm going to just post it once I complete it. Now let's move on. So I'm going to do the left hand side with the lighter shade of green, just half of it. If you want, you can do this entire thing also, but I wanted to add a little more different theme on this, so I'm just going to do the left hand side of my leaves, just half of it. Rest half I'm going to use a little darker shade. So here you can see how this is looking now. With every single color adding, it looks more complete. It feels that you've added a little more light to it. Just a little bit more, only on the left hand side. Right hand side, we're going to do a darker shade of green. Isn't this looking absolutely stunning? Always go from light to dark. So this is the left hand side, I'm going to do it light. So it's easy for you to remember. The left hand side light and the right hand side is going to be on the darker shade of green. You can find numerous designs created by me, inspired from different platforms, and you can see a lot of videos how I've created them step by step. If you try and create something similar, do let me know. Don't forget to tag me or message me, share with me. I would love to see what you have created. You can find my artwork on Pinterest. So this is how it's going to look on first half. Thank you so much for watching all this video and for all your love and support. I'm going to post the complete picture on my Instagram channel. Thank you so much for watching.